So today we're in Hebrews 11 verse 4 through to 16, and we're thinking about what it means to live by faith, how we can learn from the example of those who have gone before us. Yesterday for our reading, I placed this passage, Hebrews 11, in the context of a persecuted church. I think it's important to remember that these words are written to encourage and strengthen those who are suffering. And we thought about that definition of faith that we see in Hebrews 11 verse 1. Being certain of what is hoped for, being sure of what we do not yet see. So faith is about seeing that promised desired future, that promised healing, that promised provision, that promised breakthrough, and it is considering it as if it is here and now in the present today. But yesterday I scaled that idea up to, I think, its truest form, that the thing we hope for, the thing that we do not see, is our future hope of Jesus' return. A time when heaven invades earth forever, making all things new, no more tears or pain or death or sickness. A day when those who endure with Jesus, who endure the test, will reign and rule with Jesus on this new earth forever. That's the future hope. That's what we long for by faith. And then we move into all these examples throughout history, the whole of history, almost like a chronological run through the Bible of people who have done just that, who have lived with this future hope in the here and now, and how that future hope has shaped how they live day to day. I call that faith reflexing with work, just like we see in James chapter 2. So Abel, the story of Cain and Abel. Abel worshipped by faith. His faith reflects with action. He brought his best, most costly sacrifice, the firstborn of his flock. I suppose he did that because in his heart he knew that God would provide for him. So Abel worshipped in that truest sense of sacrifice and surrender. By faith he worshipped. Enoch walked with God. By faith he walked with God. I mean, that is basically how we please God, isn't it? By walking with him, by cultivating intimacy and relationship with him that pleases his heart. But that takes faith. To walk through life day to day with one we do not see. It is far easier just to get busy with all the visible, tangible demands around us, rather than walking with the one who we do not see. Noah worked by faith. He listened to God. He saw a future that looked impossible and crazy. A flood was coming to the earth. And so he got busy and he worked. He built something that brought salvation to those around him. He built a boat in the desert. That is faith reflexing with work. And then we move on to Abraham, the father of faith, the greatest example of faith. Well, if Noah's act of faith was to work, Abraham's act of faith was to wait. By faith, Abraham waited. God promised him a son. God promised this old barren couple a child. And they waited and they waited and they waited for 25 years from promise to fulfillment, knowing that God was the faithful promise keeper. Sometimes waiting, sometimes not actually doing something can take as much faith, more faith, than jumping in and getting busy trying to do God's job for him. And what of us today? What is it that we're believing God for by faith? What is the promise that we are holding on to? Maybe the promise of healing, maybe the promise of God's sustaining and strengthening grace, maybe the promise of the closeness of his presence, or the promise of his provision. Whatever it is that we're holding on to, Ask God to reveal to you more and more of what it means to step into that promise by faith, to activate that promise by faith. Discuss it with those that you're in discipleship relationship with. Ask them to hold you accountable to it. How might our faith reflex with worship or walking or working or waiting? And I pray you have a blessed day. Try to work all of that out. Amen.